Start video. All right, there we go. Got participants. There we go. Pause that. All right, cool. All right, folks. Well, I got Elissa on board with us.
You almost got it wrong.
I know. I had to correct myself. Elissa, not Elissa. Elissa, not Elissa, which is ironically is the name of her YouTube channel. And the reason I came across her is because I have this. I don't know, Elissa, is because I'm a Northern European mud or something like that, but I have a hard time rolling my R's. I've always had this issue where I want to roll my R's. So I came across a million different videos, and I came across yours with the Vorray thing, and I've been practicing that. And I haven't got it yet, but that was the easiest one of all the videos I've looked at. And I drive my wife crazy because she goes, "Would you stop, for heaven's sake?" So I was taking my dog Pablo for a walk the other day, and I thought it was dark. It was dark. It was like 10 o'clock at night. And I was going, Vorray, like you teach. And all of a sudden I look over and one of my neighbors is sitting there staring at me. I was like, ooh, I didn't realize. I was like, she probably thinks I'm a nut. You know what I'm saying? So I was like practicing. I was taking her for a walk. And I said, ooh, and I didn't expect anyone to be out there at 10 o'clock at night. So it was fun. But the reason I want to bring her on is because she's in Italy. She's from Canada. All right. She got a lot of interesting dynamics. Had lived in Australia. And I just think it's interesting for my own audience who are travel sorts, for folks who are interested in language. And Frank, I think the Italian language, like you said, Elissa, is incredibly beautiful. I don't know how to speak it. I'll probably never learn. I'm 49 years old, but man.
Don't give me that.
I don't know. But so welcome aboard. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll just go on from there if you don't mind.
You know, I always find that the hardest thing when you're like, oh, tell me about yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, how would I describe myself? Well, I'm your average, I suppose, younger edge of millennial who got their bachelor's degree and is trying to figure their life out and is in that limbo stage, essentially. Yeah. And so I moved across the world, which was probably very unexpected for everyone because I've always done exactly what I was supposed to do at every perfect stage of my life. Like, some people take gap years. I always went right through. And then I fell in love with my current Italian boyfriend, and that brought me to Australia. So that's actually the reason, well, not the only reason, but obviously if there wasn't that factor, I wouldn't have, picked up and left my country and gone somewhere alone because I'm too extroverted to be alone. Anyway, that brought me to Australia, and then it brought me to Italy. And
you met your Italian boyfriend and then moved to Australia. What I don't get it.
Before he even met me, he always had it in his plans to move to Australia.
Oh, okay.
And so he was already going to do that. And then we met, and I was like, here's the thing. I was too used to what Canada was like, and I needed to just be outside of it to actually appreciate it. Absolutely. And so I was in a period of time, and I have a video on why I love Italy, and you could see I'm annoyed. I'm like, oh, I don't want to be in Canada. And it's not because I don't love my country. I love my country. I just I needed some time away to kind of discover myself, I guess. I know it's kind of cliche, but it's true. You need to step away from things sometimes to actually be able to see it. It's when you're, okay, so the analogy I'm going to give for that is when you listen to a song or an album at a certain period of time in your life, and you listen to it so much, and then you don't listen to it for a really long time, then when you go back to it, you feel those distinct colors and feelings that you cannot describe with words.
That's crazy.
But you don't even realize that you felt that way. You can only see it when you listen to the song later. So it's kind of like that. It's I need to step away from it to see what I like about it, what I don't like. And now I feel I'm in the middle, where I'm at a point where okay, I'm no longer annoyed. Yeah. With, I'm young. It's we and it's so easy to travel now and do all this stuff that it just, it just, that's how it worked out. And I never, ever, ever thought I would live in another country. Even to this day, I'm I live in Italy. What? That's weird,
Well, did you say your folks were kind of, whoa, what are you doing here? You know what I'm saying? Were they kind of taken aback when you said you're packing up and vacating Canada?
Oh yes. Oh yes. I have an extremely loving family who, my mom is like, if you're watching this, Mom, I love you dearly, but she is like the most nurturing, loving, motherly, maternal instincts to the max. And so, yeah, I kind of broke her heart into pieces, I think, by leaving. And not I think, I mean, definitely. There was a lot of crying. So, yeah, it was pretty difficult, but,
Now, were you in
know.
college, Elissa? And you said,
Sorry?
I'm going to study abroad or something like that? And that.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, what I said before was I finished my bachelor's degree. It was like a 2016, I think I finished.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And after that, I was like, oh, okay, now what? Because I always planned to go to law school, but and I knew that I know that I have certain skills that would probably fit law because I'm generally, pretty precise with language, use of language, and I like analyzing things, and I like figuring out, like, seeing both sides of an argument and kind of trying, like, I have that kind of mind, I guess. And so it made sense. And my family always encouraged me to do that because my mom obviously wants me to do the maximum with my potential. I just didn't know if that was the right thing because I just didn't feel like I was passionate about law itself. It's like I felt like my personality traits fit it, but I wasn't sure. I'm like, I don't know if this is going to be worth being that stressed, because when I was studying, and now I'll probably deal with it better because obviously every year, especially between, like, until the age I think probably every year, but I can only speak for myself at this age. Every year is so different. Every year I change in different ways, and like weaknesses that I saw in myself when I was in university, I was like, oh, I would have dealt with that a little bit differently. Like I would have been able to stand up for myself a little bit better and things like that. So where was I going with this? You see, there was a point.
So you basically, after college, you said, you want to find yourself. I completely get that. That's cliche because it's so true.
Like, as I said, I wouldn't have if it weren't for my boyfriend and it being difficult, that whole situation, I don't think I ever would have left because I am extroverted to, I think, the 92nd percentile because I took a personality test anyway. So I cannot spend that much time alone. And so I can't be put in a situation where I know absolutely no one, because when I was in Australia, I knew no one except for my boyfriend who I was with, which thank God for that. But
now, were you working there? What were you doing? Is he working? You were working? And what were you doing there exactly?
Well, I actually wanted to study. I wanted to try to do a master's in translation. But I think it was like over $30,000 Canadian / Australian dollars, which are basically the same. I guess that's like, I don't know, maybe 25,000 American. I don't know what the conversion is. Anyway, and it was just like too much. And
understood.
The problem is that my boyfriend had surprisingly, because he's Italian and he, English is his second language, and he hasn't always practiced it. So he was like, intermediate, like a bit comfortable, but not amazingly comfortable. And he found a job in no time, like 2 weeks.
Really?
It took me like over 3 months. And even when I did find a job, it was online. It wasn't even an in-person job. Like I couldn't find anything. And I really thought, because everyone always talks about I mean, especially people in Italy talk about the jobs in Australia, how there's so many jobs. And I was like, I'm a native English speaker. I should probably be able to find something like an office job at a hotel. Like I speak a couple of languages, that shouldn't be too hard. 0 calls, 0. And so, and maybe that's my fault because my resume isn't impressive enough. But it isn't. But anyway, yeah,
but you think, like you said, being a native English speaker, and Australia is native English speaker, that would have been so. All right, so then after that 10 months, both y'all said, we're going to head back to Italy instead of Canada. What was I know you said he's Italian, but obviously you could have said, let's go to Canada. Instead, you chose Italy. And what was the genesis of that? Just to
well, Basically, it was easier because I could because Canadians can have a working holiday visa to go to Italy. Americans can't. I think it's only open to Canadians, Australians, and maybe in the UK. I can't remember who else. But anyway, it's a couple of countries. And so
if you're Canadian, you could literally get a job in Italy just part of the visa arrangement.
Well, you can get the visa. Getting a job in Italy is a completely different story because there are like basically no jobs, but you get what I mean. Like you can get a working holiday visa and you get it quick and you basically you get it pretty quick and you just go and you could spend a year there and whatever, you know?
Okay.
And so, yeah, so it was just easier because for him to go to Canada, it was like, well, how are we going to do that? And I still didn't feel satisfied. Like part of me wanted to go to Canada, but part of me was like, well, I've always wanted to live in Italy.
Yeah.
And I just felt like the only time in my life, apart from when I'm old, that I'm going to be able to live in a foreign country is going to be now, because that's the time when like I have no stable job. I don't have a family. I don't have, you know, I have my family, but I don't have a family under me. And so I can afford to be a bit irresponsible, if you want to call it that. And then later on in life, I could be like, you know what, I had my fun, time to settle down, because I'm a very like settle down type of person. Like I want to get married and have kids and do all that, do the whole traditional thing. Like that's me. Okay. But I need to get this out of my system. And so, yeah.
Well, I got, Elissa, I got 4 kids. My oldest is a junior at Georgia Tech, and I'm telling all my kids, say, look, you don't have to do the boilerplate, get out of high school, go to college, do whatever the hell you want, because you're going to be around for you. What are you, like 20 something? You're going to be around for another 70 years, for heaven's sake. You know what I'm saying? You got a long way ahead of you. Hell, I'm going to be around for another 35 years. I'm 49. I said, just figure out what you want to do. It's okay. How would anyone who's 22 years old know what the hell they want to do for the rest of their life? Now, Italy has always appealed to you because that's part of your ethnicity. Is that correct? Like that's part of your family lineage. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, my mom, as I said, is Lebanese. And so my mom is one of 9 kids. So I have 8 aunts and uncles. Plus, they all have between 2 and 4 kids. And now some of the older ones of them have kids. So I got a big family on the Lebanese side, which means even though I don't speak the language, which sucks, I would say that I understand the culture fairly well. And so I've always been connected to it. I've always had it like inside of me. It's actually really interesting because when I hear Lebanese, it's like I recognize the words, but I don't know what they mean. And like I recognize the tone, and it's like I can't access it, but like part of me almost understands but doesn't. It's weird. Anyway,
now, because that's something you could, I mean, what's the head of, Beirut, is that Lebanon? Is that
that's the capital. Yeah.
Okay, is that where you go to learn the language there or something like that and stay with the family? Or is that just, I mean, I don't know much about Lebanon other than.
If I wanted to learn the language?
Say again?
Like, you mean if I wanted to learn the language, how would I go about doing it? It's tough. I mean, my brother's trying to learn it now. And because Lebanese is like, I guess, I mean, there's kind of a debate on what it is. Some people say it's its own language. Some people say it's its own dialect. Some people just call it Arabic. Basically, and nobody quote me on this, but basically it's something like, they spoke like the Phoenician language or something, and then Arabs conquered, and what happened is they like made them use Arabic or something like that. Don't quote me, nobody hate me please, but what happened is they kept the grammar of their language, but then they used the words of Arabic.
Okay.
So that's why people call it Arabic, but like it's not mutually intelligible between like all the different countries. It's like, I think people from Lebanon and Syria and like Jordan, I think some of those countries can understand each other because it's like Levantine Arabic. It's kind of similar, but anyway, they're all different. And you know, someplace like, I don't know, Saudi Arabia, it's just an example. It's like, you can't understand anything.
Really?
And so, so like my mom, you know, they have to study standard Arabic as it's like another thing.
Okay.
It's basically, standard Arabic it's basically only something you use on the news. It's not really something people speak, I guess. It's just, you speak like the colloquial language. And the problem with Lebanese is it is not a written language. There is no official written system. It is exclusively a spoken language.
Man.
So a lot of the time, and you know, they're really great at languages there. I know so many people who like speak English really well and speak French really well. Like the school is really hard there from what I understand. And when they write, like a lot of them write in English or write in French. When on social media, they all write in English and French. And when they write to each other in Lebanese, they basically have to use like numbers to approximate some of the other sounds that don't exist in our alphabet, stuff like that. Anyway, and so
that's interesting.
Learning the language isn't easy because there's no written system. So like there are some little books and little things here and there, but it's really tough. Like you really have to grow up with it, which is why it's hard for me. Like if I wanted to learn it, and I almost did. So when I was in university, for my minor, I was like, okay, I feel like I'm good at languages. I've always been good at English. I'm like, I feel like there's some natural talent, because when I was, in Canada, especially where I live, I grew up in Quebec. And so that's like the French province of Canada. And not for you, I mean, for anyone who's watching who might not know. And anyway, so what was I going to say? Why
was this my train of thought?
Sorry? French? Sort of.
Okay. I mean, you could, if you went to France, you could order food and stuff like that, and have somewhat of a
probably. I'm trying to get back into it. Okay. Anyway, I started doing French immersion. So I actually learned to, even though my first language has always been English, I learned to read in French, and I did school in French before I learned how to read in English. And then there's this cute little story about how I like taught myself to read English, because like the writing is a bit different. And so I picked up a book because I saw my brother, who's 3.5 years older than me, reading, and I was like, I wanted to prove that I was smart because I was the younger one. I was like, I can do this too. And I picked up the book and I saw THE, and I'm like, what the heck is TH make? Like, that's weird. And I'm like, Dad, does THE spell the? And he's like, yep. And I'm like, okay. And then I just read the whole thing easily, and they were like, what the heck? You're like in grade 2. Or I can't remember how old I was, but like I was pretty young and whatever. So there was always this idea that I was great with languages or whatever. And I was like, I want to see if I can actually learn another language that's not French. And I was like, okay, well, obviously it would make sense for me to choose something that connects to my culture, just because, we're not that separated from it. Like we have, it's hard to explain. It's like, I guess there's some people from some cultures where they move to a new country and they don't really keep anything from their culture.
Yeah.
And there's some other people that like completely keep it. And there's some people that have it in between. Yeah. And so I had a lot of things kept from that culture, even though I never grew up in those countries. And so I'm like, well, I want to explore this because maybe I can learn something about myself,
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was like, okay, well, I can learn standard Arabic, which then I'd have to relearn everything and learn Lebanese. And who's going to help me with that? Okay. Or I can learn Italian, which everyone speaks standard Italian because it's become standardized. Like people still speak in dialects, but most people speak in Italian. So I can actually function if I learn the language. So I'm like, well, I already understand the Lebanese culture pretty well. Let me dig into Italian, because on my Italian side of the family, it's like very small. So there's my dad, and he has a brother, but they're both Canadian Italian. And so they have a lot of stuff from it, but it's like, it's an in-between. It's not pure. You know what I mean? It's like, I need more than that. And so does he, And then there's my grandmother, and she's great, but.
Is she in Italy or is she in Canada?
She's in Canada.
Okay,
she's in Canada.
Gotcha.
And the problem is that her Italian is kind of a hybrid between Italian that she hears on TV / Sicilian from like 1955.
Okay. Yeah.
And so it's like a little bit stuck. The dialect stuff is a bit stuck in the past because she removed herself from Sicily, which means the language doesn't evolve naturally anymore. Okay. So what'll happen sometimes is like people move to Canada, they keep their dialect from like 50 years ago.
Exactly.
Whereas they go back to Sicily and it's different now. Like,
like what?
And so anyway, I didn't want to learn Italian from her because I'm like, well, then I'm going to learn something that's like not, first of all, not natural because I didn't learn it as a child. And also it's going to be a weird hybrid. And like, then people aren't going to understand. Like I need something standard. I can go, if I feel like learning dialects is a hobby, I can do it later, And her husband, my grandfather, died when my dad was like very young. He was like 6 or something. So I lost that connection. Then there was her sister who died when I was like 10. So I lost that connection. So all I have is my grandmother. Now she has dementia. So I basically lost that connection more or less. Like she, it's like, I could still talk to her, but it's like, I can't rely on any of the information she gives me anymore.
Yeah.
Because I have no way of knowing if it's a, let's say she's telling me about a memory from her childhood. Is it real, or is it, you know how dementia is. So, so yeah. And so, I mean, I started doing that before she got dementia, but the point is that Lebanese side, huge family. Yeah. I understand the culture. This side, well, I don't really understand it well. That was a really long explanation. I am sorry to everyone. I know I talk too much. Let's see.
So that's what brought you into Italy. Say, I'd like to explore that side. You're interested in it. Your boyfriend's from Italy. It just kind of fell into place.
I met my boyfriend after that. Yeah, I met my boyfriend a bit after that.
Okay.
So this was like
pursuing your Italian. Okay, understood.
It was like 2013 or something.
Oh, okay. So this is a long time ago where you're saying, I really want to pursue the Italian side of things. So, so then you're like, so then you're like, all right, I get out of university, we move from Australia to Australia, come back to Italy. Now you're like, you're plopped down in Italy. You got one of those year visa things from the Canadian immigration thing, whatever it's called. Mm-hmm. So now what? You're sitting there thinking, could you speak the language at that point, or not that well, or enough to communicate, or what?
Yeah. I would say that I've been advanced, because I don't really know how to determine, but based on the courses that I took, I completed 2 elementary, 2 intermediate, and 2 advanced. So let's just say I was advanced in terms of grammar. I was still very shy before I left to go to Australia. But actually, speaking with my boyfriend, that's the thing that probably helped me the most, because he was willing to correct me on stuff that no one else would correct me on. Like, in Italian, there are 7 vowel sounds, not 5. So, I mean, in English, we have like 1 million, but, there are 2 E's and 2 O's. And so correcting me according to his accent, because it changes depending on where you live, but correcting me on those things, which is something that I do with my students, because I would have been so grateful for that a long time ago.
Yeah.
But, he helps me with that stuff, and I started getting more comfortable. And when I was in Australia, I mean, we were together all the time. So, I was speaking with him in Italian because I was speaking English all day. So now I speak English more because I'm speaking Italian if I see other people. So keeping the balance,
So if you walk down the street and you need to find out, hey, how do we, you can do it. No problem, right? I mean, if you're walking down the street, you just start talking.
Oh, like now or back then?
No, now.
Oh, now it's like, so some people say, oh my gosh, I didn't know you were a native speaker. Sorry, that you weren't a native speaker. And then other people say, oh yeah, I can hear something, but like you don't sound like an English speaker. You sound like maybe you come from some other part of Europe.
Okay.
And then there are other people that say, you sound like you're Italian, but maybe not from this town. Maybe like some other place. So everyone has a different opinion on my accent. Obviously, I can't judge myself.
Right.
But I would say I'm very comfortable in Italian. Comfortable enough to teach it. Occasionally, if I go to a specific place where there's specific vocabulary, like let's say I'm at the esthetician, going to the esthetician or going to the physiotherapist, and maybe I can't explain what specific muscle it is because I didn't learn the, stuff like that. Like obviously there's specific vocabulary I don't know, but I'd say people would probably describe me as near native.
Okay, well, that's good. Right on. I mean, that's all that matters. The formal stuff you can find out on Google. There's this thing called Google now. It's the ability to communicate with everybody that you come across. So in Italy, because I've never been there, my daughter, I don't say if I said this, she went to a study abroad this summer where she went all over the place. I can't remember if she went to Italy or not, but I mean, it looks freaking awesome. It looks like just
it's beautiful.
Is it just the people are nice, the food's nice. It just looks awesome. So if Italy is awesome, what does that make you think about Canada? Not comparing like Canada's worse or better. I don't mean like that, but I'm just saying like, man, you got Italy is a green, it's a moderate climb. The people are, you know what I'm saying? And then you come back to Canada, and I'm from Maine originally, believe it or not. So I know where Quebec is and all. I'm very familiar with that kind of climate. Okay. But how does it like come back to Canada? Are you just like, oh, it's cold, or because the Maine people are very reserved. They're not very, outgoing, and it's just because there's a colder climate. But how do you feel like from Italy to Canada? That's got to be somewhat of a culture shock, right?
Yeah. It's like when I was here, I mean, now I'm more used to it, I guess.
Yeah.
But there was a point, like, I don't know if it was last year when I went back to visit, and I was like, oh my God. Like I'm like, I'm hearing English around me, like this is weird. And then I was like, oh, like I got used to hearing Italian. Like, that's interesting. Okay. And I don't know. It's just, I think there was one of the times when I went back where I was like a little bit sad. Like I wasn't really, I was visiting and I wasn't forever, but like I wasn't really ready to leave Italy. And so part of me felt sad. And so it was so dramatic. I was like, I felt like everything was in black and white and I'm like, oh, it's so sad. And, so that was more of an emotional thing than anything. But, it really is an emotional thing. That's the thing. It really is, because the last time I went, I was perfectly happy to be there. I was perfectly enjoying being there. And I'm going to go back this time, next month for Christmas. And I think I'll be perfectly, apart from maybe the cold. So that's the thing. It's more the cold, but I find that in Canada, the temperature, even though the temperatures outside are extreme, you're always at a good temperature inside. Whereas here, it's like harder to. People don't maintain this constant. I mean, I use Celsius. I don't know what it is in Fahrenheit, but you can translate if you know. 22 degrees indoors basically at all times in Canada, more or less. And here it's like in the summer, trying to keep this apartment cool, it's like it was like over 30 degrees in here. It was like 35 degrees indoors Celsius. Because 35 degrees Celsius.
There's no air conditioner or something like that, or
sorry?
There's no air conditioner or something, or?
Well, we got an air conditioner now. I got an air conditioner. But like, okay, so it brings it down to like maybe 28 degrees.
Right.
But that's still like kind of hot.
So it's hard to get away from the elements. That's interesting.
Obviously, this is an apartment to apartment thing. Like this depends on where you live. Obviously, there's a lot of variation from north to south. That was just my personal experience.
Are you in the north or south? I mean, I don't know if you want to
like center north-ish. Okay. Yeah.
And so center north-ish. Is that more of a, because it's in the north of Italy, they get snow and everything up there, right? Is that by the Alps, or am I completely, I don't know much about it.
It's like farther north. I mean, we actually, when I moved here, they had like the first, why can't I speak? They get snow every couple of years here, once every couple of years. And this time it was weird because I was like, am I in Canada? Like there was a significant amount of snow considering it was Italy. And I mean, they're not prepared for that. Like in Canada, you get snow, like all the plows are going like first thing, basically. And here it was just like, I couldn't even leave the house because no one could drive, basically. It was interesting. But
it is interesting.
No, it doesn't snow here very often.
Now, in Italy, how's the cost of living there? Is it cheaper? I mean, I have no clue. How do you to get food?
It's definitely cheaper. I mean, maybe apart from big cities like Rome and Milan, but definitely cheaper. But the salaries are also lower.
Yeah, right.
So
it's just trade-off.
It depends. It depends. And so Italy's tough because of the job situation. They
just unemployment.
Yeah, and it's like people my age in Canada are like working for the RCMP or doing like maybe their secretary, or if they're not doing something related to their degree. Okay, if they're not doing something related to the degree, it's something like a secretary, or they're doing some like office job or something like that. People here my age are like working in an ice cream shop or a movie theater. Which is more something that I did when I was like 16.
Yeah, exactly.
So a little bit different, you know what I mean? I'm not saying everyone. I'm just saying that was my personal experience with my friend group.
Is there a way for them to? I mean, that sounds like exactly that's what you do in high school. But now they got it after university. Is there a way to? What's going to happen 10 years? Are they still be doing that? Or they? I mean, how's that?
I have no idea. I mean, it's just different. Like, I feel like here, if you get a university degree, you're going to like, there's kind of a joke that like, if you get a university degree, you're just going to work at McDonald's. And that's more of a joke here than it is in North America. And the people who do a trade, like my boyfriend does a trade. He's, well, it's kind of hard to explain, but anyway, he's in a trade and he has no problem finding a job here. So obviously, yeah. Like he can find one. The problem is other people like can't even necessarily find a job. And obviously it really depends on the person, but yeah, it's tough. And so
that's interesting. So, because we're getting that same thing here in the States too. Elissa, is that if you got a trade, you're employable immediately. You know what I'm saying? But if you have like a social science degree, you got to take a number. Me too. I got a degree in economics. You know what I'm saying? It's social science, and it's like, wow, that's great. You and a million other people. You know what I'm saying? But if you got some kind of trade, you'll find a or if you can be a nurse. I tell you, if you're a nurse in the States, you can go wherever you want. That's interesting. But even in Italy, if you have a degree, the joke is you go work at McDonald's unless it's something like a trade. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's rough. It's definitely
rough. Are the people your age, in the mid-20s, are they frustrated by that? Are they trying to get out because they say, I can't find work? Is that, you find that like people trying to get to North America or something like that?
Yeah. And that's why everyone's obsessed with moving to Australia or moving to Canada. Or I think I hear people moving to the States a little bit less. I feel like I've always heard Australia and Canada a little bit more. I don't know if it's easier, or I don't know what. I mean, I don't know if it's because, you can just get a working holiday visa very easily. Like when I applied for my working holiday visa to Australia, it was approved in literally 10 seconds.
Really?
Like you do it online, and it was just like, I guess because I have a Canadian passport, so I'm trusted. I have no idea. But I think it's partially because it's easier. I have no idea, but they're definitely, and some people are saying like, well, all our young people are leaving, so who's going to lead Italy? Who's going to make the country better? So people are like, well, should we stay and try to make the country better, or should we go and try to make our lives better because there are more opportunities elsewhere? That's kind of a little bit of discussion that I've been hearing. So there are definitely a lot of people who leave, especially people who want to do, who are like maybe a bit more ambitious, let's say, academically. They study abroad and,
That's interesting, Elissa, because you're sitting there thinking, I want to make Italy better, but the same point is I got to take care of number one, and I can't just work at McDonald's for 10 years hoping that something else shows up. You know what I'm saying?
And I'm not in any way saying that everyone works at McDonald's, not for you, but for anyone who's watching. I'm just saying like, it's, I feel like it would be weirder if a Canadian in Canada, worked at McDonald's, like at 25.
Right.
Not that it's weird, but it's just like, well, you have a university degree.
Right.
You're technically overqualified.
Yeah.
Minimum wage, like it's just like it's kind of.
No, that's not what you go to.
It's kind of weird, It's kind of something you do when you're like, when we have. I mean, in Canada we have Tim Hortons. I worked at Tim Hortons when I was 15 because that was one of the few places you could work at when you were 15. So I worked there for like a year or something, and then. I got my first, I've always had trouble finding jobs that I actually enjoyed because I think I fit in a very specific place. But anyway, I found an office job when I was 18 or something. I can't remember.
Probably wanted to kill yourself, I imagine, right?
Well, here's what I've learned about myself over the past couple of years. If I do not have something that's at least somewhat, there has to be a certain balance between academically challenging and creative. And maybe the creative stuff isn't going to be my job. Maybe that's going to be my side project, but I need one of those things. I will suffer. Like restaurants, I am not good at that at all. I commend anyone who can be a waiter or a waitress. I cannot do that. I am slow. I like to take my time. I love people. I'm extremely extroverted, but like I enjoy the conversations. I enjoy helping people and helping people.
You're paid to shuffle product. If you're sitting there yapping to people because you enjoy them, the other people over here like, I want my order. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but no, it's not just that. It's like, so when I was in Australia, I did find a job for like basically one day as I wanted a job, whatever. This guy hired me or whatever, and I told him like, look, I don't have any experience basically, so please like be easy on me. I will learn, but like it might take me because I know how they just go fast, And he's like, he acted all nice at first, and then he showed me where something was, and like I'm nervous, it's the first day. I'm worried about not being able to find a job. I'm nervous. So you tell me where something is, like I might have to ask you again because you just told me where 50 other things are.
Right.
And then he like, oh, where's that thing again? And then he yells at me, and I'm like, okay, well, all right then. And it's just like everything. It's like I made a mistake on their system for ordering stuff, and then he's like, that's the last mistake you're gonna make, and I'm like, okay. And I was nervous, so like
it is last mistakes. I'm out of here, clown.
Yeah. And, I think, again, that was another learning experience where like he made me cry. And now looking back on it, I think I probably would have handled that a little bit easier because I've kind of toughened up a little bit because, um, a way that I've grown actually over the past couple of years is my weakness has always been dealing with people in a position of authority who have control over either a job or like my marks in school or something like that. That makes me cry like freaking nothing else when I feel helpless because I'm such I don't know if I want to say outspoken, but like I want to stand up for myself, but it's like I know I can't because my future's in jeopardy.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Anyway, so I was very like weak in that moment. And
that's part of getting older, man. You learn, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's just, you learn and you learn how to
for sure. But anyway, the point is like I can't work in that kind of environment because I am not tough in that way. Like that's not where my strengths, like that's hitting my weakness. It's not hitting my strengths. I don't get to be creative. I don't get to be academic. And not everyone has to be like, that's just the way that I am. I wish I could be good at that, but I'm not. And so, that's why I kind of gravitated towards teaching because I'm like, well, that's kind of academic,
So teaching YouTube, you know what I'm saying? So I find it interesting that here you and I are connecting just because of a YouTube video. I get this all at the same time from my own channel. It's nuts. I had a guy in, I can't remember, in UAE who, the whole thing is crazy. It's crazy how the world has shrank. So as a creative person who likes to teach, who is outgoing, YouTube's like the perfect medium. So what brought you to start a YouTube channel? I mean, so again, we'll put the link in the show notes, but you got a bunch of videos. Your oldest one is going back 3 years ago. But tell us the beginning of YouTube and how it's shaking out and what you foresee in the future. Anything that comes down the pike around this is great.
Well, the very, very first video, which is awful, I just left it there just to show like progress essentially.
Very simple past verbi regularity is what it looks like, at least what the first video was from 3 years ago.
Yeah. That was because I was making a lot of Italian friends and I was using an app called Hello Talk where you can just do like a language exchange. And so everyone was asking me the same questions. So I'm like, let me just make a quick video about this so I can just send it to them because like, I just didn't feel like explaining it a million times. And so I posted that. And then obviously I had no views. I wasn't trying at the time.
Right.
But then after that was when I was still in Canada. Then when I was in Australia, where you see the second one, which is I think the most successful one. Yeah, how to roll your R's.
400,000 views, and you just posted it a year ago. How awesome is that? 400,000 views.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I didn't know that video was going to get 400,000 views. But I knew it wasn't going to get nothing. I knew it was going to be like moderately successful and probably the most successful video I'll ever have. And I knew that right from the beginning because, well, anyway, back to why I started the channel. So extremely extroverted person.
Yeah.
In a country they're not unfamiliar. I mean, Australia is probably the most similar country to Canada apart from the States. So it's not that different, but it's still different. Okay.
Yeah.
In a place I'm unfamiliar with, I don't know anyone. I'm dying for human connection and I'm lonely and I want to make connections. Okay. And so I was like, well, I mean, I'm not dumb. I think I have things to say.
Yeah.
Why don't I don't know. I just had a feeling like, and I mean, my channel's not big by any means. But it's not nothing. And nothing. I think
nothing.
Yeah. So, like I'm happy. But I don't know. I had this idea and I developed this technique for the R. Because here's the thing. When I was trying to learn how to roll the R, I was so desperate for years.
Yeah.
Throughout my minor in Italian, trying to figure out how to do this damn R.
Yeah.
And I could not figure it out. I watched every video on YouTube at the time. And every year I would revisit, trying desperately like, okay, let me just try one last time. Maybe there's a new video that can help me, And there wasn't. And every technique was just like, it just wasn't clicking. It wasn't working. And I was like, there's something wrong with these techniques. Anyway, so I I can't remember exactly how I stumbled upon the first technique with the single R. I think it was because I was reading something in English to an Italian speaker, and he's like, "Why did you put an R there?" And I was like, "I didn't. That's a D. Not the D like in dare, but the D like in better."
Right.
So it becomes like a da 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 thing. And I was like, that's not an R. And I was like, oh, maybe it's like a similar sound. Okay.
Right.
And so at least that's from what I remember.
Right.
And so I started experimenting, asking and telling people like, okay, sera, is that right? They're like, yeah. I'm like, oh, I freaking
And how you spell it, it's like with an R. Like for English people, that's S-E-R-A.
No, for English speakers, I would put a D there.
Yeah, right.
So you can think of the D. I mean, there's no.
No, understood. Yeah.
You get what I mean? In better.
When you're looking at it, there's an R in that word, right?
Yeah. It's like there's an Italian R essentially.
For that D, like better. Exactly. You see what I'm saying? It's like that's what.
Yeah.
I just find that interesting.
And so that's the thing. And I was like, look, some people can do this naturally.
Yeah.
Some English speakers do it naturally. They don't even speak any Latin languages. I'm like, why can they do it? They're doing, because the thing is, I knew there was something specific about like because you have to be relaxed yet tense in the right way, yet relaxed in the right way. And I'm like, you can't just make yourself do that. That's not how it works, because I've been making myself do it for 3 years and it's not working. So I was like, okay, well, there has to be something to like trick myself.
Right.
I have to, because sometimes you have to trick yourself into doing stuff. It's like a surprising amount of learning a language is psychological. A staggering amount of learning a language is psychological. And I just had a feeling about it. Anyway, so I figured that out, and I was like, okay, well, I figured that out.
Now one guy said, why'd you put the D in there or some of that? It's just some random guy said, why'd you do that? You're like, oh, it just clicked in there.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
But
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's just amazing. That's literally serendipity. You weren't expecting this to happen, and yet all of a sudden you're able to grasp this incredible wealth of knowledge just by this happenstance. It's amazing how that works.
And so that was the first one. Then for the second one, for the double R, which is even harder because there's a vibration. I was like, well, again, there's airflow, the specific amount of airflow and tension in the tongue to make your tongue vibrate, which I can't do manually. So I need to trick myself. And, over time, my single R got stronger and stronger, and I became very comfortable with it. But I was still saying vorrei instead of vorrei.
Right.
And I was like, okay, well, how am I going to trick myself into doing this? And I think I was on the phone with a friend, and we were talking, and I was like, how am I going to do this? And then I was like, well, okay, let's think about this for a second. There's a vibration.
Right.
What's a vibration? Well, vibration means my tongue is hitting the roof of my mouth a certain amount of times, which is basically doing the single R a certain amount of times. So I'm like, well, what if I separate the two R's manually? Right. And I go vorrei, but with that single R that's Italian, not the English R, the Italian one, vorrei. Will my tongue just get lazy and allow it to flow naturally? I swear it was like by the end of that conversation, I don't even know if I worked on it for 10 minutes. Like it wasn't a great one, but I got a vibration. I was like, oh my goodness, I figured it out. And then that was, I think, probably a year before I made that video. That was when I was still in Canada when that happened, I think.
Oh, man.
But anyway, and then I figured it out, and I was like, you know what? I was so desperate for so many years. How can I not make a video? Like I've always been attracted to this idea of human connection. I'm extroverted. I don't mind being in front of a camera. Like I like acting. I like all that stuff. I like, I like seeing my face on a camera. I know it sounds narcissistic, but I don't mind seeing myself on the camera because I like acting and I like stuff like that. And I don't mind presenting myself in that way. You know what I mean?
And mumble, I was like, you enunciate so people can understand what you're saying as well. That's a big deal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I've had people describe my accent as being the most neutral, I guess. It is, I would say, one of the neutral accents in English. I mean, I think my accent's a fairly good representation of North American English, apart from some words where I sound Canadian.
Yeah.
Like about.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
And house and couch.
I say
and things like that.
Elissa.
Yeah?
Out, about, house, and I've yet to be able to. I still say it to this day.
Yeah.
How do you say volume? Like you're gonna turn on the volume.
Volume.
See, I always said volume growing up, volume,
Really?
and then I was like, "What the hell is that?" And then someone said, I always said volume because we, that nasally about. But
well, the thing is that because I'm from Ottawa, so English in the Ottawa Valley has been compared to Californian English.
Oh, okay.
There are a lot of similarities, and so that's why, for example, Rachel McAdams is Canadian, Ryan Gosling is Canadian. Obviously, they work on their accents. I'm sure there were some little things that they needed to change, but generally, like, they have this clear kind of voice,
Yeah, right.
and there are a lot of Canadian actors in American movies, and there really aren't that many adjustments that we need to make.
Tons of comedians are Canadian too. You know what I'm saying? That just tons of them. Yeah. So that video, when you first posted, so that was like kind of like your real first video, essentially. It looks like.
Yeah.
And then how long did it take for you said, this is fun. Let me keep doing it and to do. I mean, you got.
Well, when I did that, I was like, okay, I'm not doing one video. I'm gonna like actually start a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Like that was my plan. I was like, hey, I'm gonna start a channel, and I posted the first video, and I already had an idea for the second one, and I kept seeing videos of people saying like, American girl speaks Italian, or American whatever speaks Spanish, whatever. I kept seeing those videos. I'm like, oh, why don't I do one? Like, why not?
Yeah.
Because I feel like Italians find it interesting because, most Italians are learning English. Not most North Americans are learning Italian. Right. And so it's, I guess, more unique, if you will. And so I think to them, it's more impressive to see a North American, like, because the pronunciation is so different. To hear someone speak with that kind of pronunciation is to them more impressive. So I'm like, well, maybe people will enjoy this. And they did. And then one of my friends had an idea. Why don't you do a video on how to pronounce Italian names? Because no one could say his name right. And that was his idea. And actually, I think that's the one. Is it the one with the most views?
No, the roll your R's. To learn Italian, how to pronounce Italian names is the second one. And then Canadian girl speaks Italian is the third one.
Yeah, like that. But at first, the Italian names one had the most views because it ended up on the homepage in Italy a few times or something.
Really?
Yeah, and then all of a sudden I went from 500 subscribers, and then every 5 days I gained 1,000 for like a month or two or something like that. Like it would just all of a sudden, like it was on the homepage, and I got a bunch. To me it was a lot. I was like, oh my gosh, I have 4,000. Like that was kind of quick. Like, okay, cool. And then it slowed down after that, but yeah.
You got some. I think it's great. You got how do you say seems like or sounds? I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I'm like, you know what I'm saying? I just find that to be fascinating, and how you say because people, that's very specific, and like you said, as a niche that might seem small relative to the number of Italians trying to speak English, relative, for English trying to speak Italian, but we're still talking hundreds of thousands of people want to learn to speak Italian. You see what I'm saying? And if there's not that many people teaching it, you kind of have the field's yours essentially, which I think is freaking cool, man.
Yeah, and I mean there are other channels of people who teach Italian, but everyone has a different perspective. And the thing is, because my perspective is from an English native speaker, I know how to access the North American mind. Yeah. Like I know how you think because that's how I think. Yeah. And I know how I learned it, and I know how to improve the way that I learned it. So, I mean, I think it's a good option, especially for beginners. Now, if you're advanced, like you go with an Italian native speaker, like you don't, but if you're a beginner, I think it's a choice that makes sense because Italians, like even, sometimes I can't explain why something is the way it is in English, but I can explain why it is the way it is in Italian because I learned it and I've noticed the patterns. Whereas in English, apart from the fact that it's a different language, I know it because I grew up with it. Yeah. It's just a completely different approach. So I figured it doesn't really matter that other people also have similar videos. If I have a different approach, like why not,
mindset, man. People, and not only that, but I mean, this is right. I mean, I do financial planning. There's 8 billion people doing financial planning, but no one does it the way I do. And no one does it the way you do because they're inherently unique individuals. Some people will gravitate towards that. And some people say, Josh, I can't stand because I'm kind of verbose, just like you. And I get my biggest video it's only 9 minutes. And for me, that's short. They're like, you talk too much. I'm like, and I always say, thanks. You're not going to like my other videos, so don't even bother. You know what I'm saying?
Because, oh my gosh. In my video of how to roll your R's, I think it's 7 minutes.
Yeah.
And people writing, blah, blah, blah. You talk too much. I'm like, okay, because for 30 seconds, I had like a little 20-second moment where I said like, this was so annoying for me not knowing how to do this. Like, I'm so happy that I learned it. I think I said something like that. And I'm like, really? That was too much? Like, okay.
7 minutes.
Like, I just helped friggin' hundreds, like 100,000 people learn to do their R.
Well, my thing is, if it's so long for you, why the hell would you take time to email or put a comment in there? That doesn't make any sense. Like, I get that. It's like, you talk too much. And I'm like, then why'd you take the time, which your time is so valuable?
Well, the thing that's funny is like if you're trying to learn how to do your R and you're not willing to spend 7 minutes on it.
Oh man, that's a great point.
I find that kind of interesting because
that's a great point.
Like,
yeah, I
you
want
need to spend time on it.
I want to take the time.
And I mean, look, like my technique is the first one at least is pretty quick. It's pretty instant if you get it, you know.
Yeah. No, I got that just like that. I was yeah, I got that. I'm still working on the Vorray one, but but I got the first one.
You know, anyway, but whatever. I mean, like
So you got 14,000, roughly 500 subscribers. Can I ask, are you making money on this?
A bit, a tiny bit, yeah.
Is it enough to pay the rent or anything? Or?
Oh no, by no means. It basically pays for my Netflix, Spotify, and
some discretion.
Like a bit, you know. It's like, are you allowed to say how much you make? It's like $120 a month or something like that. Like, it's not nothing. Like, I'm very grateful for it.
Elissa, they post videos all the time of how much they're making on YouTube. That might be something you do. I'm telling you, that is some of the biggest videos that people get is how much I made on YouTube. That might be something.
Yeah, but the thing is, I'm curious to see how much I made all time for that video on how to roll your R's. Because I'm pretty sure I can see that. So let's give them a nice little sneak peek. Now, keep in mind, this is over the course of like 2 years, so it's not like I got this all at once. Oh, it just hit 400,000 views today.
Yeah. Oh, just today. That's freaking awesome. 400,000. That's what I've got on my views. So that's freaking awesome, Elissa.
That's cool.
Now I see. Okay. While you're looking that up, you also say what you do for a living. So what that's one of your videos, what you do for a living. So are you a private tutor on video or in Italy or what?
Yeah, I just teach online. So anyone who wants a lesson, send me an email.
Yeah,
but
so people they can say, hey, even if it's, hey, I just want to learn how to order wine the next time I go to Italy. I'm going to Milan. That's what I'm going to say. I'm going to Milan. I don't know how to say some basic stuff. I'd like to have somebody just teach me just some basic stuff. They can hire you to do that.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, look, like you can do whatever you want. You could take a lesson with me once. You could say, I want to see you 5 days a week. Right. Like there isn't really a limit, I guess. It's just, it's up to you. If you want to learn Italian very seriously, like, you know, I've taught people from scratch before. I don't know how many people.
How do they find, like, I mean, do you have a website they can go and email you at? Or, I mean, I'm going to put the link to all this stuff, but I don't even know.
I mean, it's in the description of all my videos.
Okay. So if people want it, so folks, if you want to hire Elissa, you can do that. And you can someone can sit there in Vancouver, Canada and say, hey, I'm going to, like I said, Milan, I'd like to learn some basic Italian, or I'd like to learn a lot of Italian, whatever they want to do. They can hire you out as to do YouTube, to do video.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, my goal and also if they're non-native speakers of English, watching this who want to learn English, like if you just want to, even if it's just conversation and you have me correct you, because I focus a lot on pronunciation because pronunciation is really important in English. But my goal for teaching is like, I want to give you what you're not going to get anywhere else, which is like, you can go get a grammar book. You can go watch YouTube. You can watch what you're not going to get from anyone else is corrections and pronunciation. You're not going to get that anywhere else, like corrections on pronunciation. Now, obviously, if I'm teaching somebody from scratch, I teach them everything.
Right. No, understood.
For the English perspective, the way that is the easiest to like understand and think of things in the proper way. So an example of that is like, mi chiamo Elissa. It's not my name is Elissa. It's I call myself Elissa. Okay. So if you think about it in the right way, you're like, okay, well now I see, okay, that's a reflexive verb. You know, it helps you understand why things are said the way they are. And I do that a lot because, you know, for example, come stai, it's not how are you, it's literally how do you stay? Because if you start saying how are you, instead of using the correct verb, which is stare, you're going to use essere, which is to be. But it's not how are you, it's how do you stay. So thinking of it in both ways with the translation and then the literal translation prevents you from using the wrong verb. It helps you think about it in the right way and stuff like that. So I think it's a little bit of a different approach, but
it's real world. That's
you know, I teach people from scratch, but also, you know, obviously people should supplement lessons with other stuff too. And like, I will gladly give you other resources. Like you know, and yeah, I mean, it's fun. Like it's
interesting, Elissa, because when I took Spanish for a number of years, I'd never learned it. I learned it more in 10 days in Peru than I ever learned. But anyway, the issue is on the academic side, you want to translate it, like you just said, like how are you to what you think in English. And that's not the way to do it, as I've since discovered. Like, so you got this, you're reading a chapter in Spanish, and you're like, okay, how do I translate that to English or vice versa? And you do it in your English mind. Does that make sense? And that's not the way the language is. The language, like you said, it's not how are you, it's how do you say, or how do you stay?
Yeah, they use the verb stare.
Yeah, so if someone doesn't tell you that, you won't know. And you'd always think, I got to translate to what I see. It's
yeah, and what was I gonna say? Oh, I had a good point.
Now, can you get work as like a professional? So let me give you an example. I was listening to some guy the other day on a podcast. He said the main general in the Army made less. The main guy, the number one guy in the U.S. Army, made less money than his translator. Does that make sense? So he says the translator for General Petraeus, and this a few years ago, made more money than General Petraeus himself, even though this guy just literally was a translator for Petraeus. I said, man, is that something you could do, like work at the embassy or something like that? Or
I mean, for translation, you would have to have a degree. You would have to get like a master's in translation or like some sort of certificate. Okay. So no, that's not something I can do like officially in like a way where I can apply for, you know, I mean, someone can hire me to do it casually, I guess, if they want me to, but no, I mean, I've just been doing teaching. By the way, I found the revenue. So your estimated revenue lifetime for that video was $1,000 Canadian.
Estimated revenue hindsight, but not looking forward. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but until, you know, from January 3rd, 2018, which was when I posted it, to November 18th, 2019.
Yeah,
so
you made $1,000 on that. That's,
yeah.
I mean, that's real money.
But the thing is, you would expect it to be more because you're like, well, 400,000 views, like that's a good amount of views. Yeah, but you know, and it depends if you're making a video. If you're making a video every day and every single one of those gets 400,000, well, yeah, you're making a lot of money. But if you get one video that gets 400,000 views, it doesn't necessarily mean that like you're swimming in cash, because I certainly am not. So
well, that's the CPM, the cost per mil. So how much you're getting paid per 100,000 for 1,000 views.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that's $1,000 that you've been able to bank on one video that you've done. Now, what I tell people on YouTube is like, okay, so you didn't know that was good. I mean, you had a good idea, but still, we don't know what videos are going to hit. But the one thing we can do is if we don't do more videos, they inherently won't hit because there's no videos. So we just got to do more.
And you know what? Here's how I knew. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Here's how I knew that video was going to not do terribly. Because, did I say this already? That I was so desperate to go through every video that I knew there were going to be other people who were as desperate as I was, who would eventually fall on my video. And I did have quite good faith in my video that it would help other people. And so
that's how I found you, was that video. You know what I'm saying? So now, I mean, so the question is, looks like you haven't done a video in 2 months or so. Are you going to get back on it or what?
Yeah, I've been dealing with some annoying health issues. And so, I mean, it's nothing that you would really know because like you can't tell, because like I seem fairly energetic, but yeah, I have this really annoying chronic illness. And so it's like completely wiping me out. And I'm basically using part of my daily energy to do this, which is perfectly fine. But it's like, I have to strategize where I use my energy.
Yeah, okay.
So something as simple as taking a shower, it's like I have to organize that into my week and make sure I have to do nothing else that day so I can just lie down the rest of the day. So it's annoying. So that's the reason why I haven't been posting, unfortunately. So yeah, that's a pain.
But you start taking clients on if they want to hire you. Just want to make sure that if someone does.
Oh, I'm available to teach. It doesn't really affect my ability to teach because it's just like having a conversation with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
It's more like doing a video is a big deal. Doggy.
Yeah.
Doing a video, making a video is a big deal because I have to get up at a certain time so that I'm filming in sunlight. I have to put makeup on. I have to make sure my hair looks good. So I have to make sure I shower the night before or whatever. And then I have to set up the camera and everything has to be charged and I have to set up my microphone, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's like at least 2 hours just to set up. Yeah. And I don't have a complicated setup, but you end up spending 2 hours or more, like just putting makeup on and stuff. I mean, for me, and then you have to film, which takes like an hour-ish. And then you have to edit, which takes a long time.
Editing sucks, man. I hate that. I hate
it. It's not so much the taking of the video, of the recording of the video. It's more the editing, which can take. I've spent like 15 hours on videos.
Yeah, editing.
I spent 20 hours. And my videos aren't complicated. So imagine the people who do have complicated videos. And I mean, obviously they're probably more efficient, but yeah. So it's hard because I need to focus my energy into like surviving so I can like actually pay rent. And, and so it sucks because I wish if anyone wants to support me on Patreon and contribute to the Elissa Surviving Fund, you can feel free.
Is there a link in your description on that too?
There should be in the description of some of my videos, but and that's the thing. It's like I want to make videos so bad, but I just like my body's not having it, and it sucks. So that's why I'm only doing teaching right now, basically, because it's kind of all I can handle. But yeah, it sucks because I'm like, it's been 2 months. People are gonna forget about me, but I can only do as much as I can physically handle.
I mean,
sorry.
I'm going to post this video on my YouTube channel, and you can do the same on yours. You see what I'm saying? So this literally is a video right here that you can use as content for sure. And because that's what I do. And I interview people, probably once a week or so, and I post these on there, and they absolutely able to. Pablo, like I said, Pablo is not camera shy. Like what's your cat's name again?
Evie.
Evie, yeah. Elissa showed us her cat as we started this. I think before I was recording.
I think it was before.
So we both have critters that love to be on camera. Elissa, he's got to go to the bathroom, so I'm gonna get out of here. But all right, so I will put links to the show notes for Elissa's channel, and it's Elissa, not Elissa. Mm-hmm. I love it. I love what you're doing. I hope real quick, is the medical stuff, is that something that can be arrested, or is it something that's just lingering? I mean, has a doc said that like there's a, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm very familiar with chronic fatigue syndrome. I'm very familiar with that, and there's never like a cure, so to speak. And I know it's debilitating. I know that. And it sucks. I don't know if that's what you have, but are your doctors saying?
It's like related. Okay. So if anyone's curious about it, it's a form of dysautonomia, which basically means that my autonomic nervous system is like not really efficient, and basically my brain is sending the wrong signals to all the automatic stuff in my body. So it's like telling my heart to beat too fast when I stand. It's not circulating my blood as efficiently as it could. Blood's not getting back to my brain enough. So that's why I keep forgetting what I'm talking about, because I get a bit of brain fog and stuff like that. And so you would never know that because I'm a very energetic person. And when I decide to put my energy in, I can do it. It's just that after the second this ends, I'm going to be like wiped out.
Yeah, I was going to say,
so I've learned to kind of channel my energy in a short period of time. For example, when I teach, and then after I'm just like, bleh. So anyway, the form I have is called postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome.
Tachycardia, is that what you said?
Yeah, that's part of it. I mean, it's kind of an oversimplification. It's just that the most obvious measurable thing is that when I go from lying down to standing, that my heart rate increases more than it should, and it stays there.
Yeah.
And so you kind of feel like you're having a panic attack not every time you stand, but some of the time, because it's like you ran a marathon, but all you're doing is standing. And so standing is hard. And even sitting is hard a lot of the time. So there's no cure for it at present, which is annoying. sometimes it goes into remission, which is why I was posting videos for a good amount of time. Because for about like over 6 months, I didn't even feel it. I started exercising again, and then I think I overdid it. And now I'm back to square one. So I'm trying to figure out this mystery that is my body and trying to find a doctor that cares enough to do research and help me figure out this mystery. But anyway, like, you know, it's all good. Like, life's good. I've just got an extra little mountain to climb, if you will. No, so, I mean, I'm sure
cardio is no joke. That's no joke. So, I mean, that's no joke. So,
yeah. It's okay. It's not for anyone concerned. It's not life threatening. I'm not going to die from it.
It's not.
It just severely gets in the way of your life because like I can't do whatever I want. Like I have to
just turn on the video and start pumping away. I mean, it takes time. And you got to have the energy. You know, like you said, I had a sneaky suspicion when you said that after this you'll just be on your back because it's exhausting. Like I said, I'm not familiar with your specifics, but I am familiar with.
But there are people who have POTS, and it's called POTS for short, and also have chronic fatigue syndrome. So most people who have POTS have something else. I'm not aware that I have anything else at the moment, but some of the symptoms are similar because I'm like, I wake up, by the time I finish eating breakfast, like I need to rest again. It's like I'm wiped out just from like existing. So it's similar. Anyway, so that's that.
Well, thanks again for being on here, Elissa.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's great. And I tell you folks, if you're interested in learning the real world of Italian, man, just hook up with Elissa, and contact her. Absolutely. And I'm telling you, because just like she said, of all the videos I watched on how to roll my R's, there's one guy's like, I was like, I just can't do all that without, it's almost like never mind. But anyway, it's like, then there's one strategy, again, I don't do it yet, but I will. And it's just great. So I'm much obliged, Elissa. I'll email you when this is done and post it. And good luck to you. And
thank you.
Keep positive, man. You're a positive lady. You got a lot to offer. Just keep at it, would you please?
Oh, definitely. I won't give up.
Hey, thanks, Elissa. We'll see you later.
All right.
Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye.